I think success prepares us for achievement, but it doesn't prepare us for significance. And I've come to believe that some of the most important questions in life don't begin before success, they really begin after it. Stick around. That's what we're talking about today.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Schin.
Hey, welcome back to Franchise Pitfalls and Profits. This is a show that is really about the real mechanics of growth, how you build the right way, how you avoid the mistakes that quietly stall good businesses, and how you create stronger systems and architecture that can actually carry the scale that you want to do with your business. However, we're going to shift a little bit in our podcast and move to a different type of content. We're going to move in a direction where some of the episodes this year are going to talk about life topics through the lens of a business owner. But today really isn't then about franchising, and it's really not about business. It's about this life lens, or the lens that a business owner and entrepreneur looks at life through. So we're going to talk about some of the things that I've been thinking about recently. Some of the things, business is great and focus is great, but the reality is we have a life, and those things, we hope they come together so nicely that they're dovetailed, but they don't always work that nicely together. So we're going to talk about opportunities looked at from different lenses. We're going to look at growth, some of the life impacts of growth. We're going to pursue financial security, but what does that really mean? We're going to pursue influence. We're going to pursue goals. And there's just nothing wrong with any of those things. In fact, again, life requires these things from us. But I have spent most of my adult life building businesses, helping others build businesses, helping people grow their businesses, but also grow professionally and grow personally. I've helped people scale their lives while they also scale their businesses. And I've just helped people make important decisions. Like many of you, I've had a lot of different seasons that I've gone through. Some where I was so intensely focused on achieving, on building, on growing, on creating, on accomplishing. And I think most of us assume that when we finally arrive at some point, we think that some of these things that we've been pursuing will somehow become simpler. That all of a sudden, when we achieve that level of achievement, everything will get answered. Uncertainty will disappear. Our confidence will simply be there all the time. Satisfaction is just going to arrive and it'll be okay. But that's not always what happens. Because I think success prepares us for achievement, but it does not prepare us for significance. And that's where we're going to get interesting, have an interesting conversation. That's where this dialogue is going to get interesting, because I've noticed something over many, many years, and that is many of the hardest questions in life, they don't show up on the way to success. They actually show up after success. And when you're younger, the questions are often, pretty straightforward. How do I get there? How do I grow this? And when I say younger, I mean early in your maturity, even as an entrepreneur, not just necessarily chronological age or biological age. We ask about how do I make these things work? How do I prove myself? A lot of striving goes on. How do I create something meaningful. But eventually, I think the questions begin to change. What now? What is all of this for? What is this all about? What things actually matter? Who benefits from what I've built? What kind of legacy am I leaving? I think legacy is often not about what we leave behind when we're gone. I think legacy is more about how do we live when we're here? What are people seeing as we're living when we're here? Who am I becoming in the process? These are just all very, very different questions. So I think success doesn't automatically answer these questions. In fact, I think success often introduces them. Success just brings on a whole different perspective about how you live and how you operate. So I've worked with business owners, I've worked with franchisees, I've worked with founders, executives, leaders, whatever title or label you want to put on. But I've worked with this level of people for decades. And the one thing that I've observed is that success it will expose things. We didn't know they were there. Maybe they weren't there, but we certainly did not know they were there while we were building our success. I think sometimes this success exposes insecurities, some fears. I think it has us sometimes questioning our identities. Our identities were tied to that success. Is that all I'm about? This especially happens when you think about retirement. When you think about, if you're a business owner, and most of you are, when you think about selling that business or you have sold that business, looked like the right time for you to get out of that business. You found the right person to take your baby, onward and upward. And then I've seen so many people at that stage of their lives and their professional careers as an entrepreneur. I've seen so many people have that deer in the headlight look because they just don't know what's next. They have always strived and been attached somehow, and their identity connected to achieving. I've seen highly successful people just wonder if they're really qualified for something else. And maybe these are some of the things that you've experienced yourself. All right, just want to share some things with you here as we're going through. So maybe you've experienced this yourself. You've built something, you've achieved, you've accomplished, you feel you've gotten where you wanted to go. But instead of feeling complete, that little Jiminy Cricket, for those of you who are older enough to remember that, this little voice in your ear, in your head says, can I really go beyond this? Do I belong here where I am? Am I capable of carrying this responsibility even further? Or am I capable of transitioning into something else? Years ago, we didn't talk a lot about imposter syndrome. Today, we have a name for it. But the reality of that isn't new. The interesting thing is that success doesn't eliminate those feelings. I think sometimes they are magnified or amplified. Success creates new challenges, and you might not be up for new challenges. You might not want to pursue another opportunity. It just might be too heavy a weight for you to carry at your new stage. You're older, you're physically older now. So I've seen people sabotage opportunities that they had worked incredibly hard to create. I don't ever think it's an intentional thing. I don't even think it's consciously done, but it's subtle. The promotion comes, business grows, opportunities arrive, you're striving, you're making the most of them, and then, suddenly you hesitate, you pull back. Um, I've seen a lot of people get their business to a certain point and then kind of mentally and check out and almost retire. But while the business is still going on, I remember working with one of my coach's clients in the western part of the state. And that's exactly what this man did. And he thought after 2 to 3 years of starting to pull away that his son would step in. His son was all about computers and systems and automation, which is not really what the business needed. His son loved to be back in one of the back offices, just at his computer all day. That's not what the business needed. And so that pullback created all kinds of complications in the business. And he started second guessing himself. He started, again, his legacy was to pass the business down to the next generation. And it sure didn't look like that was going to happen. And things actually started to fall apart, and things actually started to fail. And that's ultimately why he had brought us in. Achievement took them somewhere emotionally that they weren't prepared to go. He had a great business, probably should have sold it, 3 or 4 years prior. Success gave him something his identity hadn't fully learned how to carry, which was pausing and moving out a bit. But anyway, I think we think that that's more common than most people realize, or I should say, I don't think we believe this is as common as it is. And we have a whole generation, a whole baby boomer generation coming through. They're retiring. They're wanting to sell their businesses. Some are simply closing very viable, good businesses. They feel they're at a station in life and a season in life they should move beyond. But it's a very, very confusing time. It's a great opportunity, not to get sidetracked. It's a great opportunity. If you're younger, you want to get into other businesses, there's a massive opportunity for a massive transfer of wealth. But you gotta put some effort into it. Maybe that's another podcast topic. But I think success is should teach us how to pursue other things. Success in what we've done should prepare us for future successes. We've learned, success has taught us how to build things. And maybe we don't build another business, but maybe we build another component of our life and our legacy. And I think that's where significance starts to enter into the conversation. Achievement has been about what we've accomplished, but when we think about significance, the word significance, we start to think about what those accomplishments have done for us. I think achievements are asking us, what can I build? How far can I go? But significance is saying, why? Significance is saying, what is this for? Significance is saying, who's benefiting? Studies have shown over the last few years that consumers want to buy from companies that are about more than just that product or service that they provide. They want to buy from companies that contribute in other ways, significance, that have greater significance than just that transaction, the service or the product. Again, when we talk about significance, we're talking about, what can I contribute? What does what I do contribute to? How does it contribute? I think that's what many people experience that this is the shift that comes on later in life. Okay, so the older I get, I think the less interested I become simply in pursuing another opportunity. I said, yeah, there's going to be this massive transfer of wealth, the potential there. It's going to be great opportunities to buy businesses that have done, someone has poured their life into it. It's done very, very well. They're ready to move on. So there's tremendous opportunities available, but I think when you hit a certain season in life, you stop pursuing those. That's a generational transfer of wealth. I think we become more interested in understanding whether what we did, what we're doing, but maybe what we did has any meaning. Does it have any significance? Does it make a difference? Does it contribute? I think as you get through success and you've really accomplished, you want to know whether you're aligned with something that's bigger than just yourself, whether it was worth the effort, and just really whether it was worth the effort that you put in. I think significance, when we start thinking about significance, it's about now becoming the person that you hoped you've been while you're achieving and accomplishing, but in a lot of cases you maybe haven't. So now's the time to think about being. Again, if you're a spiritual person or a faith-based person, I think the world has a to-do list. But I think God has a to-be list. I think God wants us to be who he wants us to be, and not worry about how much gets done, how much we have to do. So I don't think success prepares you for these kinds of questions. Are we prepared to have grandchildren? Are we prepared for a legacy? Are we thinking about it and prepared for a legacy? I don't think success prepares us for the influence that we really can have, and influence really matters more than the recognition and the success. I don't think success and achievement and accomplishment prepares us for the moment when we discover that having more isn't necessarily as satisfying as helping someone else become more, be more. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit today, but perhaps that's really the point. Maybe achievement was never supposed to be a destination, like we get there and then look around, like climbing Mount Everest, or I climbed Mount Fuji in Japan. Maybe this achievement and success and accomplishment season or mode was preparation. Maybe the achievement gives us opportunity to pursue significance. And I really think it should. I really think it does. Maybe the reason some people continue to feel restless after success is because success wasn't the finish line. It was simply the doorway to a whole different perspective about life and all the different questions that come with that. Questions more about purpose and meaning, contribution, give back, impact, being, and I think maybe the most important question of all is the question that I will wrap up with as I'm turning, going around third base and heading home here. What have your achievements prepared you for? Are they questions that now need answers and different kinds of answers? Success, again, I believe, has prepared us for achievement, but it does not prepare us for significance. Some of the most important questions in life often begin after you've reached that. That's why it's not a finish line to cross and a ribbon to break through the success. I think that the most important questions are really coming upon you when you've reached your success levels, your achievement levels, and your accomplishments, not before that. So until next time, keep building wisely. And I'll ask you, and I'll ask you to simply, if you've liked this method, again, we're doing a little bit of a change up here. I want to shift and give you perspectives from a 26-year veteran entrepreneur, business owner. I want to give you the lens because I know that your mind is going there. I know you're thinking about these things as you've achieved and accomplished. It doesn't end there. And those are the kinds of things we're going to continue to talk about. So if you liked today, please let me know, share, ask me questions, and we will definitely see you next week.